friends, welcome to the podcast. I am Melissa Matheson, and it's Camel Wednesday. We're talking about the camels coming and how, just like in the Bible in Genesis 24, the camels brought Isaac a wife. Today, my friends Andrew and Elizabeth are here. We're not only talking about how they met, dated, and married, but a little bit of Elizabeth's story of meeting God as a teenager in foster care and later being adopted. Friends, I have heard Elizabeth tell this story many times, but today, it just got me in the feels in a whole different way and made me cry. November is National Adoption Month, so go grab a cup of coffee and join us at the table. We're talking about Eagle Scouts, the ministry of motherhood, and grandpa clothes. Today on What's Next, God? So you guys are coffee drinkers, I see.
Yes.
Andrew brought his own mug.
I did.
This is a fancy mug.
It is one that Elizabeth got me.
From Target.
From Target. I didn't know where it was from, but it has a wood handle.
Oh, it's very cool.
And that is the...
It's like a little thermos.
And the other
looking.
thing is it's tall, like myself. No,
Yeah.
but,
so it'll hold a lot of coffee.
A lot of coffee, and I have a very wide, long hand, so big
It
handle.
fits just right.
So little 2-finger handles are tough for
big hands.
big piano hands like myself.
So you have to just carry your own mug everywhere you go, or just today?
Or no handle either.
Or no.
So I have
Gotcha.
a tumbler I take to work that keeps it hot the whole morning, so that's nice. But this is like, if I'm going to drink it fast, then it's not a problem.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to look cool at work either. So.
Oh. And Elizabeth, you're still drinking on your coffee from this morning, I see.
Yes, I am. It is still in process.
Do you limit yourself to like 1 cup a day, or?
Well,
This is new.
this is new because for the longest time I was drinking like V8 energy juices that have like caffeine from green tea in them.
Yes.
So I've drank those for years, and then we calculated it up the other day and we were spending like over $50 a month in these juices that I just liked because they were cold and refreshing. And he's been trying to get me, I love coffee, like good coffee from a coffee shop, lattes, that kind of stuff. Like I've been very spoiled by coffee shops that we visit. So everything that we were making at home just was not cutting it. And so I just kept doing the juices until one day Andrew made me some espresso in our mocha pot, just regular, coffee from Walmart. And he poured, I don't know if he poured the whole thing in there, but poured the whole mocha pot in there. And then...
Just made like an iced latte.
Yeah, just
What
made
is
iced
a mocha
latte.
pot?
So it's MOKA rather than like mocha coffee.
Mocha the chocolate.
But
Okay, MOKA.
I don't know if it's a brand thing. I'm pretty sure it's the style thing. It's just a percolator, that stovetop percolator, but it's termed a mocha pot because it makes specifically espresso versus like a big coffee percolator type thing. The same sort of thing.
So
boil
you
water at the
put
bottom.
your boiled water in the bottom, you pour your espresso.
It's got a top that screws on. Well, you put the actual coffee in this
In a little
cup
basket
thing.
on top?
Yes, set that in, and then you screw the top on, and then, anyways, then the water boils up through just like that. But because it's so condensed and small, the concentration of the coffee is what makes the espresso, and also the process is what anyways, that's how you determine espresso. Under pressure, or anyways, there's different ways to make espresso, but this is one of them.
So this mocha pot, does it make just like is it equivalent to like 1 shot of espresso?
So it probably makes about 6 to 8 ounces. Ours does. You have big ones, small ones, but it makes 6
You
to
have a
8
small
ounces
one.
of espresso. And so generally,
That's a lot of espresso.
It is.
So to
Generally,
answer your question,
2 to
I
4
try
ounces.
to, but the whole thing is in here. So that's why I sip on it
All
this is
day.
8 ounces of espresso.
Yes.
7
So
to 8 ounces of
I start at
espresso.
7:00 and it's, past
Yeah.
3:30 and I'm almost done with it.
And she is
So-
a breastfeeding mother, so this
So
is probably
I'm trying
like
to
just
take it
enough.
slow.
This is probably just enough, but
Yeah.
she does already take it slow anyway.
Yes.
So are we off of the VA caffeine juices?
Oh, yes.
Pretty much,
Yeah.
and we
Yes.
are all
So she was
just...
spending
all-
almost $60 a month on V8 stuff, and I buy a $13 bag of coffee that lasts me 2 months. So it's like,
Ding,
we
ding,
could get
ding.
you on
Yes.
this, and we could spend a $13 every month.
There we go.
Maybe you can see I'm tapping the table.
That's okay.
But anyways, quiet. I was like, that'd be great. And then, anyways, coffee.
How much coffee do you drink a day, Andrew?
I always drink a cup in the morning.
Okay.
So I make a pour over in the morning. That's what I do. So, and I don't know exactly how many. It's about a cup. The way I measure it is in grams when I'm pouring it. So I don't know exactly.
You
but
measure in grams. You have like a little scale,
I
and
do have
you
a
weigh
little
everything
scale.
you
Yeah.
do.
So and the only
And he
reason
times it as he
Yeah.
pours it.
So
He's
Do you
The
like
only-
wait, let it
watch.
bloom, and all of that?
I'm sure
and
that
then...
there's certain term. All I know is that I have somebody that basically this. I thought of this the other day when I was thinking. It's like if you don't measure your coffee, then your coffee never measures up. That's not. It's more. I've had a pour over that I made without doing any of that, and then I drank one that someone did, and I was like, this is 10 times better. What do you do? And then it was actually my brother-in-law. He's got lots of friends in the coffee world, and I've got some friends that own a shop in Atlanta and different people I've talked to. And so he just told me this is a simple ratio type thing, this many grams to this much coffee, or this much water to this much coffee, and then pour it in this sort of time frame while you've got it on the scale. And so it takes 3 minutes to make my pour over, and it's ready and done. But I have to actively do it. So
Yeah.
But I don't have all the fancy tools. I have a Chemex little thing, but that's it. So
But that's
as far as
kind of fancy.
the Chemex is fancy, so it's more like the scale. It's not super precise. People probably get finicky about that. And I don't have a kettle with a gooseneck thing to be very precise. Anyways,
That's okay. We are in Hamilton, and there are no coffee shops.
so anyways, yes, exactly. So,
This is fancy for Hamilton,
Yeah.
Alabama.
so I try and make my coffee taste as good as possible because
You want to enjoy
I
it.
want to enjoy it.
And his morning cup is black, so
Yes,
he
morning
wants
cup
it
is
to
black.
be-
Oh.
But then I don't always do an afternoon cup. So if
Okay.
I'm doing one like today, then I put creamer in it. But
So
I
this is
could
like
drink it
his
black.
dessert coffee,
Yes, it's
and then the other one is like wake you up
Yes.
coffee.
Gotcha.
Because I'm on the road for 6-7 hours a day.
Yep.
I don't want to question about my sleeping or so. Especially with the newborn, it's kind of like got to make sure.
Yeah, so you guys, how long have you been married?
We have been married 4 years in April.
April.
Has it
Yeah.
been 4 years?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So 3.5, a little over
Yeah.
3.5 now, but then a couple more months in April will be
Yes.
4 years.
And you have 2 boys.
We
Tell me
do.
about them.
We have Abner, who just turned 2,
Okay.
and then we have Hollis, who is about to be 3 months old.
And Hollis loves me very much.
Yes, he
He
does.
He let me hold him Sunday, and he didn't even cry
He
or
didn't.
wake up or anything.
He did really good.
He did
I was
good.
impressed.
Oh, I was too, actually.
And so we don't know much about Hollis's personality yet, but Abner has my exact personality to a
Yes.
T. I mean, he is a little boy version of me. And so I feel like I really get him and understand him. And I can kind of predict what his struggles will be, what his weaknesses are, what his strengths are, because we have the same. So I love having him be my personality. So
A little me.
he's great. I mean, he's like the perfect little boy.
He is. He's
He's
a
amazing.
sweet little boy.
He's a good listener. He's so sweet. He loves Hollis. Like,
yes.
wants to take care of him and is very concerned about him all the time.
Very
So
concerned.
he'll give him his passy when he cries, and
They're
talk
going to
to
be
him.
good brothers.
They
Yeah.
are. They're like 21 months apart, so
That's
they'll
good.
be
Mhm.
close.
I heard you are an Eagle Scout.
I am an Eagle Scout. Scott didn't tell you either, but he is as well.
Is he really? I didn't know. I'm
All
so
of the men
mad
in the
at your
family are.
brother.
All the men in our family are
Yeah.
Eagle Scouts. My dad's an Eagle Scout. My oldest brother Norm's an Eagle Scout. Scott's one. I'm one. My younger brother Ben. So
They
all
had
5
to
of
get
us.
their Eagle Scout before you could drive, right?
Yeah.
That was the rule.
Couldn't get my driver's license until I got the
Well.
everything lined up. I didn't. There's a finalizing process with ceremony and stuff, and they call it a board of review. They have to go through. But once all that was scheduled, my mom was like, "All right, you can go take the license." I was like, sweet. So
That is so cool. So, do you think your boys will get into any of those things you did as a child? Which do you think they
I
might?
have mixed feelings just because of the direction of the program currently. But I mean, I have a lot of people that are really involved in the Boy Scout specific program.
Okay.
That I'm really passionate about the program itself. So I just don't know how it's going to play out. It's more something that what I learned for sure they're going to know.
Yes.
So as far as outdoor skills, leadership stuff, and I mean, Scott and I have tossed around the idea of like, what if we designed a program? I don't know. But
What if
there's
you
a lot
did?
Of good, there's a lot of good programs out there currently.
Right.
And it's not that we couldn't make our own thing, but it's just, you know, I haven't even looked at those other options to see, do they measure up to the experience that I had?
Yeah.
And then if you actually get into an in-depth conversation with Scott and I about Boy Scouts, I'd say 95% of the Boy Scouts you meet don't really even know anything about the Boy Scouts.
Yeah, because it's so
you talk to
different.
Scott and I about it, we're very passionate about it, and we've got friends that are big into it. So
Yeah.
there's a lot into it. But anyways, yes.
Yeah. Elizabeth, your childhood, was a lot different, wasn't it?
Yes. We came from very
Different.
different worlds.
Almost probably exact opposite.
Exact opposite.
Exact opposite.
Parents that have always been married, still married, huge family, lived in the same house my entire life.
Yeah.
Her story was nothing like that.
Yes. So I grew up in pretty intense poverty and
Where were you living?
everywhere.
Oh,
And
all
yes,
over.
All over. I mean, we moved so many times. Up and moved at a moment's notice. My parents couldn't pay the bills sometimes, and so we just left and found somewhere else to go. And so that was kind of, my childhood. And so, well, my biological parents divorced when I was, I think, 3 months old. And at the time, I went with my mom. My older brother, went with my dad. And my mother remarried. And she really struggled with mental illness her whole life. And she had us all when she was very young, like starting at 15 or so. So she remarried soon after that and was in and out of mental institutions for a while and had other children. And so whenever she was, something was going on, if she was in drugs or if she tried to commit suicide for the 10th time, that was something that she did on a regular basis. Then when she would be at a hospital, I would be home taking care of the younger kids. And so that was kind of my whole childhood, if that was, childhood.
If you could call it
a childhood.
Yeah.
And then, so that was kind of, I carried a lot of trauma from that, just walking in on times where she tried to commit suicide and having the mess to clean up afterwards so my younger siblings didn't see it. And then in the midst of all that, just from a couple different close family members, endured some sexual abuse and things on top of that. And so when I was 13, I moved out of my parents' house and lived with some different family members for a while, and then reconnected with my biological father, who I had never lived with and never really knew. He would call me on my birthday, and that was really the only time I ever heard from him. And so moved in with him. And then there was drugs in that home as well. And I'd say during that time, by the age of 13 or 14, 15 time frame is when I just kind of went off the deep end, didn't know the Lord at all, and just was doing anything and everything I could to fill the void of everything I experienced in childhood and everything. So those few years were pretty crazy, and just got involved in drugs and alcohol and men and any relationship that would promise me love that I had been looking for. And so I was kind of in that situation for a while, and then it got to a point living with my dad where I just couldn't live there anymore. We didn't have heat, and so it was during winter, and I would use a blow dryer under my blanket to keep warm at night, and didn't have food in the house.
Elizabeth.
It was bad. And then my brother was living there at the time too, and so he was doing drugs as well, and there was just a lot of people like threatening to come in our house and shoot up our house because he owed people money, and it was just a very dangerous situation. So one day I just was fed up with it, and I ran away at the age of 13 and got picked up and off the street a few hours later and dropped off at the police station, and then just kind of stood there just not knowing what to do. And I walked in and just told them what I had just come out of, and they just took me out of the home and put me in foster care. And I was in foster care for three and a half years or so, and went to a few different homes and families, and none of it was just working out. Some of the homes were really good, some of them not so good. And then I ended up in a group home, and it was an all-girls home, and there was a boys' home too. But the house parents there were Christians and took me to church and talked to me about God, and I didn't really know anything. I never read a Bible before. I didn't know anything about the Lord. And my house mother at the time bought me my first Bible and taught me how to look up verses in it. And she wrote 2 verses in it. And so once I learned how to look them up, I went in my room and looked up the verses. And it was the first one I read was Psalm 34:18. And it said that God was close to the brokenhearted, and he saves those whose spirits have been crushed.
Yes.
And so when I read that, I didn't know anything about the Lord or God's presence or anything, but in that moment, it was like overwhelming. The presence of the Lord was just there. And I just thought, like, that's me. Like, he's close to me because I'm brokenhearted and my spirit has been crushed. So God is close to me. Like,
Yes.
the creator of the universe is close to me.
And you were about 16?
I was
17?
15. I think I was 15 or so. So I read the next verse that was written down. It was Jeremiah 29:11. And first time ever reading this verse, talking about God having a plan and a purpose for your life. And I was just thinking, like, there's a plan and a purpose for everything that I went through. Like, there's still a purpose for me, and God has a plan for me.
Yeah.
And I was just overwhelmed and just shut the Bible. I walked into my bathroom and was just met with this overwhelming presence of God. Like I said, I didn't know what it was at the time, but I just started weeping and crying and just, I didn't know what to say, and no one had ever told me how to get saved or anything like that. But I just remember in that presence feeling this overwhelming love and feeling this sense of like holiness, and didn't know what holy meant or anything, but just felt that. And I just felt like I recognized my need for God. Like, it was like a moment of like, I need God in my life and I don't know what else to do. And so all I said was, I'm sorry for everything that I've done, and I just need you. And from that moment on, that simple prayer, my life was just radically changed, and like just began walking with the Lord. And yeah, ever since that moment, my life really changed. And I mean, I was still in foster care for a while, and it was just like reading those verses and having that encounter, that just powerful encounter with the Lord. It was like, I just knew, like, I just felt like I met God for the first time, and having that experience and just feeling like I began this relationship with God, the creator of everything, and just having somebody to talk to and some love to finally feel like.
So you knew that is what you were missing. Mm-hmm. You recognized God as what you'd been trying to find and fill in that void in your life. Yeah.
Yes.
And he did.
He did. And yeah. I mean, that, like I said, I was still in foster care for a while, but just started walking with the Lord, reading my Bible, and didn't really even know how to spend time with God. Just read the Bible, the whole Bible, just read the whole thing front to cover. Didn't know what to do. Yeah, so I just started in the beginning, and just from there, just grew in my relationship with the Lord, just learned how to talk to him. And there was a huge healing process for me through all of that. Went to a few different homes, got in contact with, I met a school teacher, and she just fell in love with me, and she became a foster parent. So I lived with them for a while, and they wanted to adopt me, but at that time I had began a relationship with the Lord and prayed about it, didn't feel peace about it. So ended up moving out of that home. But during that time, I went to a church, and the youth pastor of that church, his daughter and her husband were hanging out with the youth. And so I would go over to their house and hang out with them, got to know them. Her husband taught me how to play guitar and all this stuff. So whenever I got placed in a different placement, they had really wanted to become foster parents because they had found out that they had been told they couldn't have biological children. So they knew me and were beginning the foster process, and it said like what ages they wanted to take, and they said to themselves like, well, we definitely wouldn't take an older child unless it was like somebody like Elizabeth. And then once they kind of offhandedly said that, they we just really thought about it and was like, we really want to foster her and see what.
Because how old? So I know John and Cammie. How
Yes.
old were they when you met them?
So they were my age that I am now, so 25 and 26.
when you were
When I was 17 is when they met me. So they were, 25, 26 years old.
yes.
And we're trying to foster. And I mean, I don't know if they had planned to adopt me at that moment or not, but they just got met with a lot of, because they were so young, it was hard for them to kind of get their foot in the door to get an older child. And so the next time they called the office, I had a new social worker who was a spirit-filled woman of God, loved the Lord, and knew that they had just the system had planned to just keep me till I was 21, but she had their names written on a piece of paper, and she said the Lord just highlighted them to her. And so when they called, she said, I was actually planning to contact you because I feel like this is something that we're supposed to look into. And so long story short, they get to come see me for the first time in months. They hadn't seen me. They picked me up from school, and they started the whole process, and I started getting visitations with them and everything. And then right before my 18th birthday, so this month in November, because they do adoptions usually in November because it's adoption month.
Interesting.
So I think there's an adoption day too. I don't know what day
We'll have to look it up.
But so right before my 18th birthday, we went to court and they legally adopted me and got my name changed and everything. So I had a completely different name. I wasn't even named Elizabeth until I got adopted. So
What does that mean to you to have your name changed?
well, beforehand, my name was Mercedes Lynn Hoocord. So Hoocord is a French name. I always got picked on in school for having it. But so whenever my name changed, before we went to court, we had decided I told Cammie, I know you didn't get to have a baby, so I know part of having a baby is choosing a name. So if you want to choose a new middle name for me, then I would love to.
Cammie chose your middle name?
So she chose it. And what was so she chose.
I thought you picked your name.
No.
She got to pick.
She picked it. But what was so crazy, she had no idea. I had never told a soul in my entire life, but I had always wanted my name to be Elizabeth. I loved that name growing up. And I would, anytime me and, friends would play games, we would change names in our games, and I would be like, I want to be Elizabeth. And I never told anybody that. And I told Cammie, I called her on the phone, she was working, and I was like, I want to let you choose a name. And she immediately said, Elizabeth. I want your middle name to be Elizabeth.
Elizabeth, I'm crying.
So Elizabeth means God's promise and consecrated to God. So
I don't even have words.
So it was a huge identity change for me to have that
because
name.
names bring identity.
They do. And then Mitchell, which was my new last name, means who is like God. And so to have, when we were in the courtroom and they, were pronouncing my new name and everything, and then putting the gavel down, I mean, it was I felt the presence of the Lord, and it was I kind of just saw it in my head, just this picture of the Lord cutting off my old name and bringing in this new name,
Yes.
this new identity, and just cutting off everything from the past, and just having that new identity established and walking in that. And so that was that.
It's almost like I don't even know what to say next.
And that's the Cliff Notes version.
Oh, that's the short version. So, okay, because I have so many thoughts, but let's skip forward to, and we'll come back to my thought that I have. Let's skip forward to how you met your husband sitting next to you.
Yes.
Andrew, because you guys came all the way to Northwest Alabama to a ministry school here at the Ramp, which is a ministry here founded by Karen Wheaton. And they have a ministry school. You guys came, what year did you come, Andrew?
We were the
Became the
same
same
year,
year.
but it was the
20
fall of 2013.
2013. Okay, wow, 6 years ago.
Mhm.
Yes.
And y'all were in the same class together.
Same class. And we didn't even really know much about each other until...
I knew she was in PA and she had long blonde hair at the time.
Performing
Performing
arts.
arts.
Yeah, she was a
Yeah.
dancer. Yeah.
So we didn't know anything about each other.
Did you like each other right away? Like, did you see each other across the room? Where was that
I actually
first
had somebody
meeting?
that I was involved with before I came that I had plans on returning to. So
Oh.
anybody my first year was like, didn't even think anything.
And there was a
about
no
it, so
dating rule then too.
true.
That's
and I'm a
right.
rule follower. So
Yes.
it was
Ooh,
like
what's your Enneagram number?
1.
I know
So
one.
I
You
was
look
like
up
not even
Enneagram 1 in the
looking at
dictionary,
guys.
and her
then.
picture is there, I'm telling you.
Andrew,
Yes.
what's your
I am
Enneagram?
a 3.
Ah, the achiever.
3 with a 2 wing. So.
Yes, I'm
Yes.
a 3 with, or I'm a 1 with a 9 wing. So yeah, so
So
we
rule follower,
just-
no dating.
No dating.
Not
no,
even looking
not even
at
looking.
him.
And I didn't even date because of my past that I had been involved in. I didn't date after I got saved. My whole high school,
Sure.
first year of college, first year of RSM, didn't even think about dating. Just didn't want to go there.
Right.
And so definitely didn't have eyes for each other. Andrew, poor thing, he dressed like a grandpa. Like he dressed nice, but it was like,
So here's the issue, right? We move. Everybody moved different hours away. So I moved 5 hours away from home, expecting that they're going to have this semi-casual dress code for every class, or not business casual, business whatever.
Yeah,
attire,
business
whatever.
casual, sure.
So, whatever. So you have ties. So that's the only clothes I bring with
he
me.
gets them from like Goodwill and things like that. So they're older.
I had certain clothes
no.
that my forced.
Okay, maybe
anyway,
they're-
either way.
but-
But then the story of my life, being the 7th number of 9 children, is that hand-me-downs.
Hand-me-downs.
is the name of the
Hand-me-downs.
game.
Yeah, yes.
So
10 kids in
whether
my
I look like
family.
a grandpa is because grandpa's probably more than my siblings are not grandpas, but anyway, so that's why I have these clothes, because they are, and then just the way that my dad is, he is like, he probably wouldn't admit it, but the pack rat, just like
Yeah.
everything.
Because somebody may
saves it,
need
right?
that sweater
And then-
one day.
And then having 9 kids is, I mean, he was very successful in his career. I mean, he had to have made a lot of money with 9 children, but
Mm-hmm.
it's like, so it was just like, we got to save everything we can. So don't throw these clothes away because they're wearing them.
Because they're wearing them in 20 years.
Yeah, exactly.
And we're saving them for the grandbabies.
Yeah, so here I am wearing these clothes. And,
So you
and
weren't
it
into the
was-
grandpa look.
No, I mean, and like I
my
said,
point was that those are all the clothes I brought with me. So that's why I dressed that way. It's because I was like, I'm not going to go out and buy other casual clothes. I'm just wear what I brought with me.
May as
I
well.
dress
I mean,
nice
he
every day to
looked
class, even
nice.
though I
He
have the
wore a
people.
tie to school every day,
Even he didn't have
but
to.
just wasn't very stylish. So wasn't attracted to him or anything. But and my whole second year, I was dating somebody else, which ended up being his roommate. And
For a short period of time. But
yeah, it's for a short period of time.
we still talk, but it was a group of friend of ours. We were like in a tight friend group.
Yeah,
And
so it's a
it was
tight
very
friend
funny.
group.
So it's like, oh yeah, Elizabeth's friends with my friend, So I was like, oh yeah, they're together.
Yeah.
So
that's
he
how it
didn't
always
never
was.
had eyes for me because I was already with somebody, and I wasn't looking at him because I was
Mhm.
already with somebody. Because of that, we never looked at each other or anything. But what was so funny was I was throwing a birthday party one year for this other guy that I was with, and Andrew comes in
At
because
my
he lives there
apartment.
at his apartment. And
Surprise!
my mom is there, Cammie, she's there helping me, and Andrew comes in, he's like, do you guys need help with anything? And he was just so sweet, and I thought in that moment, I was like, wow, Andrew Johnson is just a stand-up guy. Like, why is he not dating somebody? And he was like 40 pounds heavier and too, so it's like, still, I just was not thinking anything that I would like him. But I thought, I need to hook him up with somebody. So I tried to hook him up with a couple of different friends. I was like, Andrew Johnson, he could get a really nice, pretty girl, and I'm going to help him do that. And
That
so
was so nice of you.
So that's-
I just saw through him, and I was just like, he's such a great guy. Maybe he needs some help. Maybe I should help him out.
I bet you're glad now none of that ever worked out
Oh,
with
yes.
any of
I'm
us.
so glad. So, that all happened. And then after me and this other guy broke up, he was at summer camp the whole time. He was teaching. He was
Working at Boy Scout.
working at Boy Scout camp. So he comes back, and I was hanging out with Scott and Madison a lot at that time because of the whole breakup and everything. So we just hung out the whole summer. And by the end of summer, I mentioned, I think I'm ready to date again. But there's just no one here. Like, nobody here that I want to date. And I said, with the exception of 2 guys. that are like stand-up guys. And Andrew Johnson was one of the names that I brought up. And of course, Scott was there.
Yes,
Scott Madison,
Andrew's brother.
Yes, had previously tried to hook Andrew up several times with
So
girls.
with girls, and so the way they would go is my brother would say, "Hey, you want to come over for dinner?" I'm like, "Yeah." So I'd show up, and it's Scott Madison and me, and then some other girl. I was like, I don't even know if I've actually had a conversation with this girl, and so always nice people, but I'm like, what do you? It's like, so anyways.
So we
So
had kind
dinner
of
at Scott Madison's means something.
It means
Yeah.
something. It's not just dinner.
Matchmakers.
Yeah.
Dinner.
Yeah.
So as soon as I said Andrew's name, I didn't even like him. I just thought I want to find someone like him, you know, someone like his personality and everything. So of course,
Just not in grandpa clothes.
it's not a grandpa clothes.
Yeah.
So of course they took that and then kind of talked me into it, like, well, maybe you should try it, like when he gets back and see. And anyway, so we schemed and plotted the whole summer, like when Andrew gets back, maybe we can do something to see. I kind of wanted to see what it would be like if he liked me, because you know when people are,
She's a player.
I was
So-
I was like, maybe I can get Andrew to kind of like pursue me a little bit and see what that looks like and see if I like that. You know, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know him like that.
Yeah. You wanted options.
I wanted to have options. So
That's what I am.
Yes.
That's good.
so he comes back and you know, well, I guess you could take it.
So this is all this been happening. I didn't know.
and
anything
you didn't
about it.
know because
No
you were
one's-
at camp for
Yeah,
the
I was
summer.
focused, you know, coming back to school, ready to
Being
go.
a good
you know.
Eagle Scout. Yeah.
That's what it was. And so I had no idea that they had previous conversations about this whole thing. So I had known that, you know, the guy she was with is a good friend of mine. So I knew it was all breakups. So I was like, I'll be friend. You know, we hung out before, and so she was like sitting on the stage after a conference one time, and I helped with tech stuff at the time. So I was putting some microphones or something away, and then I saw her like sitting on the stage afterwards. So I just walked up and just sort of sat, not even this close to her, you know, sat over here just like saying, hey, you know, how's it going? We haven't talked, and I knew everything kind of rough with the summer or whatever. And I look over in the auditorium, Scott and Madison are sitting over there, and they're like, like pointing fingers, making eyes, and she doesn't see them do this. She's looking at me, and so I look over, and I'm trying not to like make a face, you know. So my eyes glance, and I'm like, what?
Stop,
don't make
stop.
a face.
Don't do
make
that,
a
don't
face,
do
you know,
that.
because she's gonna look over and be like, what's going on? And then they're gonna see Scott Madison going,
Yeah.
you know, Camel's camming it up, you know, whatever. They didn't, but that's probably what they could have done. Anyway, so all that happens, and then so that happens at night, and then I go back to Scott Madison's at night, and after the conference, she's not there, and so Scott's like, so you're talking to Elizabeth? I was like, yeah, just saying hey, and he's like, well, I mean, maybe you should talk to her. I'm like, I wouldn't talk to her, you know, me and so, we were friends, they were together, I don't know if I could do that. And he's like, he was like trying to talk me into it.
Yeah.
So I was like,
Because they've been talking about it all
yes,
summer.
but I don't know they've been talking about it all summer.
Right.
So I'm in the middle of a setup here.
Yes.
It's not unlike Scott, but anyway.
No.
So, so middle of the setup, and then and again, I had no idea she's in on it too. So she was working at Tollgate Cafe restaurant in town at the
restaurant
time,
here.
and so I was patronizing the restaurant. She worked there, and she knew I had a pickup truck at the time. She's like, hey, do you think you could help me move some stuff? I moved you to an apartment. I was like, yeah, I could probably do that. And she's like, okay. You know, and she's like, oh yeah. And we're actually going to watch, it was like one of the Holy Ghost movie or one of those movies. I can't remember what.
Yeah, a
which one.
good Christian movie.
Yeah, so one of those
Mhm.
movies, testimonies and stuff. She's
Yeah.
like, oh, we're going to watch that Scott Madison night. You should come over. And so that's when it clicked. I was like, because Scott sent me a text after she'd asked me. That
I
said,
didn't know he was going to
that
say
said,
too.
hey, you want to come over for dinner? And didn't tell me anything about her. And I'm like, I'm in the middle of a setup here. And I
Yeah.
didn't know it. It was.
Was it like that night? That's it. Seal the deal.
I mean, I was
Not for me.
definitely like, okay, you know, well, because she's like overly flirtatious, not like that, but just like, like
I was just trying to let him know that like I was potentially an option. I didn't know if he would go for me. Like maybe he thought he wouldn't be able to get me. So I wanted him to know that I was open to it.
Yes.
So I had to be.
Sometimes
a little
we
bit,
have to encourage,
Yes.
give a little word of encouragement.
Yes.
so I feel
Yes.
like, wow, she's like really into this. Okay. And thinking I did something when really this is whole scheme that I'm in the middle of
that is working.
that worked, but yeah, and worked and is working.
So after our first date, though, he said he knew that night that he wanted to marry me.
We gotta tell him at the first date. 'Cause that's
Oh,
right.
tell
That's
him
the best
first
part.
date.
Did you tell me? Is this the best part?
So anyway, so we just talked back and forth and hung out more, and we finally like one day we were I actually invited her. I taught a ballroom dancing class at one of the
Yes,
studios.
you
in town at
did.
the
I
time.
remember when you did that.
And so I needed somebody to dance with. And Elizabeth does dancing shows and stuff. And then we just had that dinner at Scott Madison. So I was like, oh, maybe she'd be good at dancing. Anyways, so swooned her with my dancing.
He's a great dancer.
Anyway, so
He is a
did the
great
ballroom
dancer.
stuff. And then one day we were like working on some stuff at the studio. And then she was like, looked at me and she's like, so what is this? And I'm like,
No, that
"What's
was
the-"
after our first date though, because we held hands. And I said, I don't hold hands with just anybody.
Oh man, that's anyway. Either way.
So you had to ask her out on an official first date.
I remember we were at the studio though, and she's like, "Well,
was
this happened
after
after
the
the
first
date?
date,
Are you
yes.
sure?
I'm
Okay. Either way,
positive.
so the first date happened. We were texting back and forth, and I asked her what she asked what I like. I said like, oh, I like doing outside stuff or something, And I was like, so what do you like? And then she sends me like,
A long list.
this
She
list, right?
I already had typed
Just
up on her
unload,
phone.
Like helping
just
him create the
copy
perfect
paste.
date that I
saved
love.
with emojis, everything.
That's so
And so our first
So
date,
fun.
my first day is I tried to take everything from that list and put it in one night. So she
Ooh.
loves
Yes.
exploring, stargazing, s'mores, peanut butter jelly, just all this random stuff, right? So
Wildflowers.
anyways, I had ended up like, I went and talked, I was Pastor Jacob Peterson, and I was just like, 'cause he was with Chosen at the time. And so I asked him, I was like, look, I'm kind of into Elizabeth, but like, I don't know the whole situation. Should I go for it kind of thing? Just because her and the other guy, because he had a little bit more insight. And he's like, man, just go for it. So literally I left talking with him, drove to the toll gate, went to her and said, you want to go out Sunday night? And she's like, yeah, because I was about to go out of town. So I was like, I have to get it done now. So I asked her out, and then she got back Sunday, and I had this whole thing planned where I left a note on her car with like something that
It was like a
rhymed.
poem.
It was
You
like
wrote the
something,
word
some sort of
poem.
rhyme or whatever. Anyways, and so she was gonna go back to her house, and I had like a bouquet of wildflowers because that was another thing on the list that she mentioned. So I put wildflowers again in the
At my
bouquet,
doorstep.
left it on a doorstep, and then she was supposed to get ready. So she got ready, and then I had my pickup truck. I had like this pad thing in the back of the truck. I packed everything in the truck. I brought like wood. I was gonna start a fire with out in the middle of nowhere. We drove out on Highway 43.
It sounds a little sketchy, but it was not
Drove out
sketchy.
to Highway 43. That's right. There's like a good place where there's not a lot of trees or whatever.
Yeah.
We could kind of, anyways, sit and stargaze there. So I used my Boy Scout skills, got out the back of the truck, started a fire from nothing on the side of the road, and
Oh yeah, pulling out all
anyways,
of the
so
And made
tools to
s'mores.
win
yes,
over.
we made
Over
s'mores on
fire.
it, and I made
Yes.
peanut butter and jelly for our ride back. We had a little snack. So, anyways, put everything in it, and
Yeah.
so and then I knew that night that I was like,
He knew that night.
this is,
Yes.
I gotta make this work.
You can do this.
Yes.
So
When was it for you, Elizabeth?
Well, I wasn't too sure because I was trying to be so careful.
I mean, he did
Just-
everything on the list.
He did everything on the list.
That's impressive.
It was. But I was just so, had gotten out of this other relationship where like I said, we were engaged. I even had a word from the Lord that the Lord told me, no one else told me, the Lord told me, the next man you date is the man you're going to marry, in those words. And so for me, it was I don't know, can I even hear from God? Because that didn't work out and, just battling
Yeah.
this whole thing. So it was pretty difficult for me to, know either way. And so, the whole time we were dating, I was praying about it the whole time. And we actually went to a Power and Love conference in Birmingham, which was by, what's his name?
Todd
White.
Todd White. So he comes with, and we stay at some friend's house in Birmingham, and we're there for 3 days, and we go on the street, and we're doing ministry stuff together. And he doesn't know this, but the whole time I'm there, I'm like, Lord, if you want me to lay this down, just tell me, because I don't want to keep going with this if this is not what I'm supposed to do. And I already feel like I messed it up one time because I thought I heard you, and I don't know. And so I felt like the Lord just gave me a peace about it to continue moving forward. And so by the end of that, event, I was like, all right, I'm going to keep going. And so
Andrew's thinking.
what's really cool about this, and it is great for people who feel like they have had a word about something and it didn't turn out the way that they thought, was during that whole time that I was, going through all the emotional stuff that came from ending this relationship, I was reading this book, and the Lord spoke to me through it, and he said, it's not a contradiction, it's postponement so that the best can become possible. And so I was kind of carrying that word with me that the Lord had spoken. And then when we started dating, before we even went on our first date, I love looking at people's names. I want to know what they mean and everything.
Yes.
So I looked
Yes.
up Andrew's name, And like I said, the word that the Lord had told me said, the next man you date is the man you're going to marry. And so I looked up Andrew's name, and one of the meanings of his name is man. It means man. And so the Lord's word to me was, the next man you date is the man you're going to marry. And the definition of Andrew is man. And so to me, that was, you know, kind of struggling with words that the Lord had spoken to me. It was like, all right, well, this is very different than I thought, but this makes sense. I mean, thank you, Lord. Like that was just so, you know, when you feel like you miss the Lord, you're like terrified to make another step, but it was just so sweet of the Lord to, I mean, how cool was that? Like, the definition of his name is man.
Is man.
So.
How long did you date before you proposed, Andrew?
So we started dating September of that year, when it was 2015
or
2015. Oh yeah, it was September something. Our first, no, it would have been in August that we had started talking, and then we went on that date, which was supposed to be just kind of casual, but I like threw everything into it.
You did.
And
you were all
in.
in.
And then we actually went, and I drove down to the Gulf where her parents were living at the time to go meet them. And that was a fun experience.
Before we officially started dating, he wanted to ask my parents.
They were very
to date.
in a good way, just very protective, just because of what had happened. And so they John wanted to look me in the eyes. Like, I call him by his first name because there's something, and that's what he told me to call him. So I don't want to sound disrespectful to my father-in-law, to anybody that's listening. Yeah. Anyway, so it's John. But so he wanted to see me. So we did that, and then we came back. And so our first official boyfriend, girlfriend date type thing was September 26th. And then I proposed January the 30th. That's right.
So
January
3 months.
3 months. And then married in April.
And then married 3 months later to the day.
How did you propose?
It was on stage at a conference.
It
was. They had a
was.
January conference, and they generally have somebody comes up and does book promotion type stuff. And so I had coordinated with people. I was like, you could get her to be like one of the people that holds the books and hands it to the guy talking, Herschel. And so what was going to happen, I had planned the whole thing, because I work the tech stuff and help with microphones and all that, is that Herschel's going to be talking and the microphone's going to be cut out. When really the guy in the back just muted it.
so you could walk out there and change mics and all that.
Push the buttons, and then when it comes on, Herschel had ran away, and then I'm there standing in the middle of the stage with the microphone.
And you proposed in front of 1,000 people.
Yes.
Strangers. No, but all of us were there.
Yes,
all of your family, community.
Yes. And my parents flew in. My mom was working in Las Vegas, so they flew in from Vegas to Hamilton and were waiting in the foxhole with my little siblings.
Yeah.
And came out with balloons and flowers and everything after he asked me.
And she didn't know they were coming.
And I didn't know they were coming.
She knew the proposal was coming, not at the conference, but she just knew it was coming. But she didn't know her parents were going to be there, so that was good. The way that my business works is that I work when I want to work, and when I put out the time and connect with people and help people with that, it's like that's when. Anyways, that's also the three.
You help people. You help people with budgeting, investing.
Yeah, so I do
helping young married couples set financial goals for buying homes. And things like that.
We do an analysis that looks at all that. So we really focus on the education side of it, of looking how financial products work, how insurance product works, how investing works, things that really successful people know and understand that I never had a class on in high school, or anything like that. That I wish I did, and I think that'll be great. But knowing that it's the way that we word it a lot is that how do you win the game if you don't know the rules? And so there's a lot of rules to the money game that if you know the rules to the game, you can win. So we approach on the education side of that, and then through that we do an analysis, do a free analysis. So generally that you work with a big fancy advisor, you got to pay some money to get analysis like that.
But they can get that free with you.
Yeah. So
how do they get in touch with you? Do you have a website or an email address?
I am just I do have a website. It's just Primerica.com/Andrew Johnson.
Okay. We'll put that in the show notes too, so people can find it.
So I connect with people, come to your home, wherever we want to meet, one-on-one basis, that kind of thing. So do that. And we look at your whole financial picture and where you want to go, where you're at. And anything financial world is just like we put it all in one place and get you where you want to go. So anyways,
and from looking from the outside, looking into you guys, I can just say that you guys have stewarded well what God has given you, your family, your marriage, your children. And so I can recommend you anybody that's needing help in that area. Elizabeth, what about you? A book?
Well,
Come on.
Hopefully so.
A lifelong dream at some point to
write
a book. That would be amazing.
You could start with a little blog or something and start
I know.
a little writing.
I kind of am sort of starting to try to use Instagram as a platform to, like I said, reach out to young mothers through the things that I share on Instagram, the posts that I share to inspire mothers and inspire them to be godly wives and mothers. And so I'm pretty passionate about that. I like to kind of stay up to date on that and release encouraging things about homemaking and being a mother, being a wife, all of those types of things.
The cutest pictures of
and the cutest pictures of the boys. What's your Instagram name?
It is Elizabeth_Mitchell_Johnson.
Okay. We'll also include that so people can get connected with you.
Yes.
Thanks for coming and telling your story.
You are so welcome.
You guys, I was not ready for some of that conversation. Hearing Elizabeth talk about being adopted as a teenager and having her name changed was almost too much. It's such a beautiful story of how God pursues us and meets us right where we are. Andrew and Elizabeth together are creating a marriage, a family, and a home that are a beautiful representation of God's love in the earth. I so admire this young couple for the way they are stewarding their time and resources to leave a legacy for generations to come. If you'd like to get in touch with Andrew for the free financial analysis he mentioned, look for his contact info in the show notes for today. And if you and I are not connected yet on social media, let's be friends. You can find me on Instagram or Facebook under the name Melissa Matheson. That's math, like 4 + 1 = 5. I before E, son, S-O-N, as in my 17-year-old son who just sent me a text saying someone told him he looked like Uncle Jesse from Full House. But we'll save that story for another day. Friends, I hope you plan to join us each week on Mondays and Wednesdays as we sit around the table, have a cup of coffee, and talk about what's next, God.